Fast X is another high-octane thrill ride in the Fast and Furious series, and we're going to take you through 10 thrilling facts about how they made it. Watch until the end when we'll be revealing how they filmed one of the franchise's biggest stunts of all time. But first, Fact 1. Filming in Italy took 5 months of planning. The explosive Italian sequence set in Rome was filmed between the capital and Turin. It was a huge undertaking, even for a Fast and Furious movie. The filmmakers needed to work with Turin City Council from September 2021 to January 22 to make sure the shooting wouldn't completely destroy the historic city for real, but it was all worth it. The set piece generated 3.8 million euros for Turin's local economy. Not bad for a 2-week shoot, but then again it did involve drones, rediverting traffic, changing local events, plus public security and local workforce employment. In fact, there were almost 400 local workers brought in to help with shooting, to collaborate with local professionals on the giant spectacle. The whole thing made it Turin's most complex shooting experience of all time, which would help to explain our next fact. Fact 2. The movie is the 7th most expensive ever. Fast X has a massive price tag of $340 million. This sees it in between Avatar: The Way of Water at $350 million and Avengers: Infinity War at $325 million on the budget-rich list. Amazingly, that's $240 million more than the crew stole in Fast 5's heist. There are a few reasons behind this giant cost, and the first is the cast. As the movies have become more popular, the stars have demanded bigger salaries. Just Vin Diesel's salary has jumped from $2 million in the first movie to $20 million in this one. The X must stand for his fee getting multiplied by 10. And this was all before a global crisis hit production. Global shutdown, the resulting inflation, and necessitating testing requirements all helped to blow up the budget bigger than a stunt in this movie. And there was one other key issue that would have helped to add even more to the budget. Fact 3. The director needed to be replaced. Longtime collaborator and director of 5 Fast and Furious movies, Justin Lin, stepped away from the project after production had begun. According to reports, the director of other blockbusters like Star Trek Beyond had a disagreement with Diesel over creative control when it came to the movie. Lin has said that this movie wasn't worth his mental health, so he decided to step away while staying on as a producer. The Transporter director, Louis Leterrier, was brought in to replace Lin, and there were 4 days between when he got the call in the middle of the night asking him to direct the movie and him shooting on set. During this time, he rewrote nearly the entire script. The new director thought the call he received in Paris must have been a mistake until the heads of Universal Pictures sent a message saying, "No, call us now. This is not a mistake. Can you read a script by 5 a.m? His wife convinced him to live out a dream he'd had of directing a Fast and Furious movie, and the rest is history. Fact 4. The team built a controllable bomb. For the amazing sequence in Italy we mentioned earlier, Leterrier wanted as much to be done for real as possible. In fact, visual effects supervisor Peter Chang wanted the bomb to be 10 tons, so it would move in a realistic way for any CGI to be added on later. The effects teams needed to compromise, and in the end they had to settle for a not-so-tiny 2-ton bomb made out of a steel model coated in perspex and fiberglass. The problem with this was that the production team had to leave the streets exactly as they found them by order of the Italian government, so they couldn't just let a 2-ton marble loose along historic roads. The team needed to be able to manipulate the bomb. They did this by putting an axle through the steel ball. That axle had wires going up to 2 overhead cables, one going forward, one going back. The next step was to use a winch that's usually used to tow gliders up in the air, and this gave it the horsepower needed to get the sphere to travel at 35 miles per hour. With this system, they were able to get the bomb to go wherever they wanted at speed. Digital effects could then be added on later to amp up the destruction in the scene without getting a telling off from Italy's president. Keep watching until our last fact to see how another massive stunt in Fast X was pulled off. Fact 5. One key member of the family returns. The family is a big part of the Fast and Furious franchise, and the dynamic has changed somewhat over the years. Dom is essentially dad, with Michelle Rodriguez's Letty in the Mary Magdalene Ride or Die role. Roman and Tej have changed more from enforcers to a comedy duo, and over the franchise there's been some notable additions to the cast, including John Cena and Jason Statham. In this movie, Dom's sister and previous love interest of Paul Walker's character, Jordana Brewster, also rejoins the gang in Fast X. But there's one notable omission in the movie with this offering, or at least if you stop watching before the credits. Yes, this is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who's had an ongoing feud with Diesel since 2016. Between the two, on-set beef turned into public social media mature beef. After some back and forth between the both of them, The Rock confirmed he wouldn't be making any more appearances after the 9th installment, despite Diesel's best efforts. But he had a change of heart after Leterrier instigated a peace treaty between the action stars, and a mid-credits sequence in Fast X sets up a return for Hobbs in future movies, as well as the spin-off TV show and standalone film. Fact 6. The team made sure to go international. As the Fast and Furious franchise has fans across the globe, the team behind Fast X wanted to make sure the action stretched across as many continents as possible, yes, even Antarctica. This might be another reason why the film's budget exploded as much as its carbon footprint. We've already explored the action scenes shot in the Italian cities of Rome and Turin, and let's not forget Naples, where Dom meets Tess. Then there's the race in Rio, which ticks off South America, although most of this sequence is shot in a studio with the iconic backdrop added in later. And who could forget the climax in Portugal? We'll talk about the dam scene a bit later in the video, but the highway chase was filmed on the IP5 highway in Vuvuzela, as well as the A24 highway. This sequence was particularly difficult because of the many locations that were used for shooting that needed to be stitched together. On top of the highways themselves, filming also took place in Lisbon's harbour and a quarry in Alenca. Seamlessly stitching all this footage together was not an easy task, but we'll reveal how they did it in our next fact. Fact 7. The team used Lidar technology in Portugal. Lidar stands for light detection and ranging. It's a remote sensing method using lasers to examine the surface of the Earth. This state-of-the-art tech was used to map out the locations used for the filming in Portugal to make sure they matched with the sequence of shots, so the chase made sense and they were in the right place, even if the team cut out big gaps in the distance. For example, the team used scenery from the highway into wide shots of the quarry to make them feel closer, even though these were miles apart. Another point where Lidar was used was when Dom lands from his plane onto some sacrificial cars. The real location for this event was too flat. To fix this, the effects team surveyed the surroundings and captured the landmark mountain range known as Serra da Estrela. Using the Lidar tech, they collected as much data as possible from the base of the mountain and completed it with a helicopter photogrammetry shoot. The environment team then created a digital mountain and seamlessly integrated it into the highway. And now for some semi-seamless links in the Fast and Furious franchise. Fact 8. Fast X links back to Fast 5. The main villain of the piece, Dante Reyes, is out for vengeance following the theft of his father's vault seen in Fast 5. In that film, and in the vault heist sequence especially, there was also more emphasis on practical effects, like Leterrier insisted on with Fast X. There are many similarities between how the bomb was controlled in this movie and how the bank vault was manipulated in the fifth film. Both were real, but both used mechanical ingenuity from their respective production teams to make sure the props didn't fly off and destroy half a city. More on that in our video on ridiculous Fast and Furious stunts. Also, in September 22, the cast and crew returned to Puerto Rico for the first time since the filming of Fast 5 took place, when scenes were filmed in the Teodoro Moscoso Bridge and parts of San Juan. Fact 9. Real nuclear and underwater explosions inspired the detonation. The massive explosion that Dante's bomb causes in Rome wasn't done for real. That would have created diplomatic tensions between Italy and the US. Instead, the carnage was done using computer animation, but a team made sure to have its basis in real life. So visual effects company behind the blast, DNEG, researched nuclear and underwater explosions throughout history and decided to combine the two. For the rest of the shockwave sequence, they looked at real tornadoes and hurricanes that reach up to 150 miles per hour. Using this, they saw what would happen to trees, buildings, and water, and then tried to recreate something similar that would work for the shots. This, in combination with the practical effects of cars being launched into the air, gives the shots a realistic quality without the priceless damage. Speaking of damage, our last fact had a lot of damage in store for a certain dam. Fact 10. The dam scene was partly shot for real. Even the unbelievable sequence when Dom uses a dam as an extreme launch ramp has its roots in reality. It's set in the Alde de Via Dam between Spain and Portugal, and the scene is surprisingly real. Some of the car action was filmed on the road on top of the dam. Further footage was then filmed at Warner Brothers Leavesden Studios in the UK, where a recreation of the top of the dam was built. A stunt driver drove off the fake dam, crashing through a barrier, and dropped 40 feet below. To replicate the vertical race down the dam, a landing ramp was used and bounced off the car for real, as if it was hitting the dam wall. The car also crashed into a water tank for the climactic bottom of the dam splash. In his own words, stunt coordinator Jack Gill has explained why they wanted to do as much for real as possible. He said, "We were all afraid that if we tried to do that as a CGI landing, the suspension might not work as well as we'd like." This goes to show that despite being a crazy movie, Fast X has more reality to it than you might think.